Everyone. The talk that I'm giving today is suicide prevention through advanced communication, and the first one you can see is a case study. So today I'm looking at a critical incident that occurred on our ward that I was part of, and it's an important issue on our ward, and it addresses the issue of suicide prevention through advanced communication techniques. So what I've learnt is that excellent communication skills are necessary and essential in order to successfully practice nursing at an advanced level. And I've looked into this into other areas of nursing in which advanced communication is required, such as palliative care, and found that there are difficult conversations that are also required advanced. So the case study that I've done was a female patient in the midst of a suicide attempt. I'm using a pseudonym for her. Her name's Jane, and I previously had a good rapport with this patient, but on this shift she was completely withdrawn and she would not speak. She was eventually found on ward rounds making a noose out of a scarf and hanging it over a rail of her curtain rod bed. So the noose was taken down, of course, and when I approached her to speak, she wouldn't speak to me at all. Like I said, she originally had that good rapport with me. She was in an intense state of withdrawal and depression. It was clear that her category 3 OBS that she was on would need to be reassessed. So another nurse went and did all that paperwork that needed to be done so that she could be transferred to PICU, and I stayed with the patient throughout the whole episode that followed this. During that time, I found that active listening was a technique that I used that was incredibly effective in getting her to speak, and I just sat on the end of her bed, and I just sat there and kept her company. Even though she was saying nothing, she was actually speaking in another way by saying nothing, as we had established a rapport. So by me not speaking also and just sitting there was my way of saying to her that I heard her and that I could hear her, and showing her that I was listening. Her intense episode that she was having eventually subsided. Eventually she started talking to me, but I believe that part of the therapeutic exchange that we had was the active listening that assisted in improving her mood. By the time we were ready to collect her belongings and transfer her to PICU, her demeanour had changed and she was back to talking. I mean, she had still deteriorated because of that acute episode, but her overall demeanour had at least, established the rapport that we previously had. This patient did have a history of suicide ideation, but she'd never acted out on these thoughts or feelings. So you can turn the page now to page 2. What I learned from the researching suicide prevention for clients of mental health services, that there have been task forces that have been set up to research the critical element, and it's discovered that the importance of the listening to the patient's voice and allowing that patient to have a voice. An important part of our dialogue as nurses, mental health nurses, is listening. So the active listening involves more than just words or gestures or tones of voices and expressions. In my case, the listening was the silence, and I was with that patient in that place where she was at, in that silence. When I feel that the patient felt that I was hearing her and where she was at, I felt that there was a therapeutic exchange that took place, and we were able to progress past that point. So active listening is a therapeutic skill and exists in different degrees. So clients may use their voice not only through dialogue but through their actions too. It may take time to gain their trust and for patients to open up to you. So so you can turn the page. So the dog's ears for the listening. Slide 5, what do I have to select? Oh yeah, so I've done the two different boxes, so you can see that the therapeutic exchange, ideally it's better for us to have the therapeutic exchange before an acute episode. If we have that therapeutic exchange with the client of the service, we can avoid, in some cases, the acute episode altogether. Because research has shown that clients who have a strong therapeutic relationships with a good peer support network have been crucial to their successful recovery. Discussing feelings with a health professional, such as a nurse, can reduce psychological stress. This is why listening is so important, as it can alleviate any suicide attempts by vocalising the reason why and stating and what is bothering them, and starting for us to identify triggers. We must give our patients the opportunities on our shifts to discuss how they are feeling, to allow that therapeutic exchange to take place. So even though we deal with a different kind of pain, the World Health Organization in 1996 stated that pain is often poorly recognised, inadequately assessed and underestimated and disappointingly managed. So the pain consists of thoughts as well as somatic experiences. Sometimes here on the ward we might be just do around and say what's your mood from 0 to 10 to assess their pain, and this can be seen sometimes to be oversimplifying a complex problem where more dialogue might be needed from them or from us. Part of our response on an advanced communication level is to communicate empathy. This can be communicated by being attentive, eye contact, nodding, non-judgment, and is very important. And it's really important to avoid interrupting or talking too much or advice giving. And that's why, so if you turn the page to the next page, I put there, yikes, I'm busy, because sometimes as nurses we can be so busy on the ward, it's like we don't have time for a suicide attempt. It's, sometimes it's like that. And Judge Judy said that's why we have two ears and one mouth, to listen more and talk less. So for me, when I looked at I've got this pocket book at home. It's a mental health pocket book, and it's written by one of my lecturers, or a couple of my lecturers, Muir Cochrane. They talk about when we are actually speaking, the active part might be us saying things like, go on, tell me more, how can we? And by using this kind of language, you are demonstrating empathy and showing how you are in the process with the patient, and that patient's not in that space alone. And I thought I'd just throw in one of the techniques that I use is I hear ya. So when someone's saying something and they're distressed about something, I say, oh, I hear ya. And I've found that even in my personal life, like if you say that, that person knows that you've heard them. I'm not saying I agree with you. I'm not saying that I'm committing to anything, but it validates their voice, and it's important that their voice is heard. So, and it can help you with your progress in the therapeutic exchange. So it's about finding what you are comfortable with and finding your own language and your own style. So you can turn the page to the next page. And that page you're on, Charlotte. Yep. Mm-hmm. So that's why I put that picture of Garfield, because sometimes it's like that. Just pretend I'm listening. But if we use that kind of language, we can show that we are engaged in that process. So the other important communication strategy that I've learned is listening to staff. And if you're unsure, it's always good to bounce ideas off other staff, particularly senior experienced staff. And I put a famous psych nurse there. Unfortunately, she's probably not a very good role model. It's just a bit of my humour that you've all found very hysterical. Nurse Ratchet. She's from Blizzard's Nest. She's probably the worst. She'd be the worst person that you probably should go to. So then you can turn the page now. So the experienced staff have seen more episodes of practice, and I've found them personally to be a good resource. They're usually willing and able to share their expertise with you, and their scope of practice is broad because it's evolved over a longer period of time. And I think we should never be afraid to ask important questions, particularly those colleagues that are senior, that can be critical in an event, with an incident or an intervention. So what I found for myself is that reflecting also on my nursing practice has helped me. So I've reflected on this episode of practice and seen where the therapeutic exchange has taken place, and if it had taken place before, it could have prevented that episode. And we can't prevent all the episodes that happen on the ward, but if we're aware of these things and how they can help, we might be able to prevent it. I think that the other thing I put is that, you know, when someone deteriorates into suicide ideation to actually acting out on those thoughts, well, that journey, that it becomes a longer journey for them to recover, you know, back from once they've had that episode, as with that patient that was in the ward that went to PICU. It just can take longer for them to come back and recover from that. So the World Health Organisation's goal is health for all. So this includes the people that we care for. We will be able to offer better health and grow and improve our communication skills for those that we care and practice for, that we care for as we grow in our practice. By growing in our own professional journey, this impacts not only on our patients, but on the ongoing evolving nursing profession that we are a part of in our community and finally globally. So that just, what I was just saying there is basically that even since I've been here in this ward, like, things are changing and evolving and progressing positively all the time. So we can be part of that, like, as we grow, we can make nursing, the mental health nursing better, you know. I have to ask questions, so I don't have. Do you guys, does anybody here have any techniques that they use that, like active, similar communication styles for this type of thing that anyone can think of?
Eye contact.
Eye contact, yeah. Is that part of it? Sorry?
Make good eye contact.
Good eye contact.
I want you to stare them down.
Yeah.
Yeah, freak them out. I do think, though, you mentioned validation. Validation is really, really important when someone's distressed. Everyone has a different level of coping, and some people get really upset at little things, but the act of validating is really important, regardless of how we personally feel about the issue involved. It's just always nice if someone says, they understand.
Like, I hear that validation. What do you mean, like validating that their voice is heard?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that they actually are in distress, and what, you know, even if we don't
Agree
with the incident that's going on, regardless of personal judgment, it's always nice to say, yeah, you must feel really awful.
And that's, you know, that's what I was really surprised when I was researching this. That's part of that therapeutic exchange, and that we're actually helping them and relieving them and getting them back onto that road to recovery. If we can have that conversation with, it doesn't have to be a long conversation, just hearing them make a big difference to their long-term outcome. So, yeah.
So, the empathy.
The empathy,
on
yeah.
the second page.
So that's it.
Yeah.